my job here at Lawrence is really to kind of mold two ideas together, to take students who are really interested in pursuing all of these different genres of science and arts and music and whatever, but still maintain a high level of academic rigor and teach them how to be a practicing chemist. And so we have to have them to have freedom, and yet we have these very strict guidelines of the American Chemical Society that says if they're going to get a Bachelor's of Arts in chemistry, you have to have all of these classes. And so my job is to get them to enjoy focusing on learning those chemical concepts and becoming a practicing scientist, and yet still have time to go play. I have a student, Karin, who she's a brilliant student, but she's really torn between art history and chemistry. She's a great chemist, but she's also a really good art historian. And so a career-long goal of mine, long ago, was I thought it would be really neat to look at or apply spectroscopy, basically talking to molecules using light and figuring out what the molecules are saying in some sort of like artistic form. And so that's where Ben Tilghman comes in. So Professor Tilghman is a world-renowned expert in illuminated manuscripts. And so we were talking one day, and he said, well, I have this illuminated manuscript. It'd be really cool to look at it using your technology. And I had recently acquired what's called a confocal Raman microscope, fancy word for it can non-destructively look at what chemicals are inside whatever it is that you're looking at. So the initial question was the book, so the manuscript is called A Book of Hours. It has a calendar section and it has a other section. Anyway, but the idea is that it might not be an original text. It's like part 1 and part 2, and part 1 may have been from some other document. And the question is, well, are they made of the same materials? The compounds that were in the inks were probably made at the same time if the work was actually assembled together. And so we're trying to figure out chemically, is the stuff at the front part of the book the same as the stuff at the back part of the book? And it's really all we're doing. Like, chemically, are they the same? Together, we found the papers we needed. We contacted, Ben got us in contact with some experts in handling the manuscript, and so we knew just enough to know what question to ask next. I don't consider my students. I consider them more colleagues in training. And so I don't like the idea of having this wall that separates us. So I always go with the transparency of, okay, I'd like to answer this question, what do you think? And so Karin's role in all of this is really to guide me in helping come up with the next question. And so she found this recipe, or several recipes, of these basically medieval inks, and so she recreated them. So the idea is that she can recreate them and control the standards in which these inks were made in, and then we're going to go chemically figure out what's in them. And then you're going to compare that to the manuscript and see if they were made in the same way. One of the things that's nice is she'll come to me and she'll say, okay, so I need to look at this ink, but I can't really get a good signal or a good picture of it with the instrument that we have. So what do we do? I'm like, well, that's a good question. And so together we're sitting there like trying to figure out, well, we could try this method. And so we go read some papers and we're like, well, nope, that's a bad method. So then we come back and we kind of stare at each other like, what could we do? And it really is that moment where you're like kind of staring at the whiteboard going, right. Do you have thoughts? And she's like, no. And I was like, neither do I. What if we try this? And I can't remember who comes up with the ideas. And I think that's one of the best parts about working so closely with a student is because, and I can't remember who said this, but science is like putzing around in the dark looking for a black cat, but you have a flashlight. And we don't even know, well, one, our flashlight's broken most of the time, but we're putzing around in the dark trying to figure out, like, well, if we look at the manuscript in this way and we get this spectra, oh crap, well now we have all these other problems that come along with interpreting the data, and we don't have the expertise for that. But luckily, I'm trained in a lot of interpreting data, and so I'll go to my graduate level or my postdoctoral level work, and I'll look at that and I'll go learn something and I'll go teach it to her, and then she's like, oh, and then we can try this that I found in this other paper. And so it's really hard for me to answer what is this project and what's the right question that you're trying to answer, because together we've kind of morphed this into a exploratory adventure side by side. And that's one of the fun things about working with Karin, is that she really is, like when it comes to this project, she truly is my colleague. She knows just as much as I do. I might just have a few more years experience on her, but other than that, she's a practicing scientist answering these questions. It's just so much fun. I have no idea what we're gonna run into day to day, what data we're gonna see, what problem we're gonna run into. I mean, I get paid to problem solve with a textbook. And what's really cool is that I've got students working beside me that they realize that, wow, it's not this like ordained textbook of chemistry that we know everything in it, and we know that it's never going to change. It's actually quite a malleable discipline. It's constantly changing, and it's this amorphous entity, if you will. And my students are adding to that, which is really fun. And for them to notice or see that I don't know things is actually more rewarding for them seeing that I do know things, because we don't have all the answers. And that's one of the hardest things, especially as a scientist. People come up to you and like, oh, you're a chemist, you must know whatever. And we're like, can't even come up with something to say, because we don't know that much. We know one little bitty piece, but we know how to ask questions. And that's hopefully what we're trying to, or that's what I enjoy teaching my students.